Hello, 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 and welcome to the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Meyerson, and today I am joined by Jennifer Maher, and I'm going to read a little bit about her. We're going to have an amazing conversation about soulful prosperity. Jennifer Maher is a soulful prosperity coach with over 20 years of experience guiding entrepreneurs to reclaim their time, boost profits, and achieve true fulfillment. As a single mom and industry leader, Jenn's journey from survival mode to joy is a testament to her mission of helping others unlock their highest potential. Jenn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm laughing because I'm like, did I write that bio? I don't remember that one. It's a good one though. I liked it. It's
I
good.
agree with you. When you get a good bio and walk away from it and hear it, you're like, "Oh yeah, that's me. I do all that stuff." And it is incredible because you're talking about abundance, you're talking about fulfillment, you're talking about not trading, your time for prospering. You're talking about doing it in a way that feels aligned with your relationships, your
Hmm.
family, your ability to have time for yourself, which let me tell you is like a no, like I have to have time for myself, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, I want to know, how did you get started on this journey of soulful prosperity? Where did this start for you?
I'll go all the way back, tumultuous childhood, but I was a very happy-go-lucky, always singing, always dancing, always out in the woods. I had stitches about, I don't know, 15 times without any exaggeration, broke a lot of bones. I was a little wild child. There wasn't much parental supervision going on. Both my parents came from very dysfunctional scenarios, and my mom got pregnant the first time she had sex and had my brother
Mm,
at 18, and she wasn't raised by her parents, and so it is what it is. And then get into my 20s, I did not graduate high school, I should say. I dropped out of high school. I did get a GED, and I had no idea that I could even go to college or be whatever I wanted to
mm,
be. And I perpetuated this persona of this wild child all the way through, junior high school. I was wild. And so I finally linked up with a boyfriend, and he turned me on to heroin.
mm.
And I had an affair with heroin for about 5 or 6 years, which turned into smoking crack cocaine when crack was like a really big thing. And I wound up in the street life for about 2 years. And in West Palm Beach when it was the crack and murder capital of the country, and then ended up in Times Square for about a year. And then I wound up pregnant under the worst of circumstances, and I found my mom and had my daughter. And while I was pregnant, I was like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? So I got my real estate license, and I completely converted into this other like superwoman person. And I basically spent the next 29 years doing the best I could as a mom. I did have another daughter, got married, that marriage failed. I did not go to the traditional route of sobriety. I always drank. And I was fueled by what I now call my shadow why. I just wanted to succeed to a level where I would never be that other
Hmm.
woman again, and I didn't want anybody to know. And now here I am with a half black child in Putnam County, New York, which is as white as can be, as conservative as can be. And so I just had to like prove I was somebody of worth. I
Mm.
didn't know my own worth. And so I did, I had a lot of success in the real estate world. I just retired 2.5 years ago after 29 years. I raised my two daughters mostly as a single mom, primarily. And I did reach good levels of success, but I always had the void. and I wasn't present for my children. I didn't really have healthy relationships. And I started on my journey of self-development about 20 something years ago. I stumbled into a monastery, a Buddhist monastery here where I live. It's a very beautiful monastery. It has the largest Buddha in the Western Hemisphere. It's hundreds of acres. It's absolutely gorgeous. And there was this Buddhist teacher training program, and how I ended up in it, I'll never know. So I walk into the room, and literally everybody in the room has a PhD, and I'm just lost, the real lost soul. And I stayed and I studied Buddhism. I became an ordained Buddhist priest, an ordained Buddhist teacher, an ordained Buddhist meditation teacher. And so I did have this deep spiritual practice, but I kept it completely separate. So here I had, this really good spiritual practice, but I wasn't able to take it off the mat and into the world. It was like when I was at the monastery or when I was meditating in the morning, I was there and I was good. And then I would go out and then I would be this other, still wild, by the way. I had this persona as, very successful, very powerful, very tough, but also a lot of fun, very crazy, life of the party woman. And so I did this for 20 something years. And then about 9 years ago, I started getting into visualization, manifestation, and I created this 7-year checklist. And, it was like earn $500,000 a year, be a size 8, have a husband, own a beachfront home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I checked off everything on those boxes. Got married under I got married and we were deeply in love. We had a lot of fun. He got really ill. I became a caretaker. The pandemic came down and I started to realize at this point I was in a partnership in my real estate company that I had outgrown my partner, but I stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, some things started happening in my marriage, but I stayed. And then one day I get on a Zoom with my business partner and he out of the blue, and I did not have all of my paperwork signed correctly. And it was all like done as friends. And I had invested $500,000. I was earning $500,000. And like that, it was all done. He made some really gross accusations, and later it finds out he was having his own financial struggles, and kind of figured this was a good way for him to see out. So it all came to a grinding halt, and it literally was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because then all of a sudden I realized, and I had started doing some shadow work, and I had started going deeper. My practices were deeper. I had started bringing the worlds together, but not quite melded them. And so I truly believe that this happened for the universe to help me along. The universe
Mm-hmm.
wanted to help me along. And so through this, my husband immediately, he's an attorney, was like, well, I can't represent you. And he wasn't there for me legally. He wasn't there for me emotionally. And, I started to see the patterns that I like. The relationship with my business partner was literally the same relationship that I had with my husband. I'm going to be superwoman. I'm going to do everything for you to a point where I make myself vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
because I'm doing things I probably shouldn't even be doing for you. And that's where this soulful prosperity came from. I finally could see and realize that there's 29 years of success. I was an industry leader, I was a community leader. Everybody, had this, but yet I didn't have good, healthy relationships with my family. My daughters were struggling. And I had become very present through the pandemic. Pandemic was really good for me, by the way.
Same.
And then, yeah, then the other thing that happened through the pandemic, I had founded the Putnam County Business Council. Real estate shut down. So
Mm-hmm.
all these businesses came out of the woodwork and they're freaking out. And that's where I started to be able to see that I could help business owners and entrepreneurs through this spiritual higher level of consciousness to ascend the emotions and to be able to, think and get into creativity and get into fun and stop praying for the miracle and start being the miracle type of thing.
Mm,
And that's where it really all came together. So that happened. Then the whole business blow up happened. And then I knew at that point my marriage was done. I'm not really getting into details, but I gave both of those men my heart, my soul, sacrificed even, time with my daughters and other things. And I don't blame either one of them. This was me. This was my pattern. It was me. It was me being driven by the shadow why of being so afraid of that being that other person, which is me, by the way. And that woman who survived the streets and who went through all that, guess what? When I need to negotiate, that's who comes to the table with me. Okay.
mm-hmm.
So getting into your wholeness, that's really what it's all about, and not separating, having these different personas. And yeah, that's where Soulful Prosperity came from. And then I realized that this was my calling, and this was what I was meant to do, was to help people to get into that space. And it's not always easy. I have to tell you, I had to spend, I'm going through the divorce now, and there's some real dark energy around my soon to be ex-husband. And I had to spend last night just kind of laying in bed, doing one meditation after the other, raising my level of consciousness. I had to wake up this morning and do it. And so it's not like you just arrive and everything is, but it is all one. It's not like I have this separate life where I'm getting divorced, and I'm running a business and my family. It's all come together, and that's what I call Soulful Prosperity. It's a business that actually allows me to nourish my soul, nourish
Yeah.
my relationships, put self-care as number one, put joy first. I mean, I kayaked like almost 60 days this summer because I put it first. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's going first. And so the business and then also surrendering, that is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just complete and utter surrendering. And the more that I'm able to let go and surrender, the more the business just comes naturally, and the more things just work out and opportunities open and grow. Because, for a perfect example, I'm sorry, I haven't even taken a breath, but that
It's okay. Keep going. You're doing
this
I'm over here just like Jen. This story is epic. It's epic. I'm literally seeing a movie playing in my head right now, by the
oh,
way.
so
It's
the
keep going.
7-year plan is the perfect example that we set goal, like how much of that masculine energy I had in play my whole entire life, being in that survival mode. Now I got to hunt and gather because I'm a single mom, and it's like, I never really allowed the feminine energy in, which is so weird because I'm such a feminine woman, and it has nothing to do with anything. It's in how you create. And so when I can get, and when anybody can allow that, that's what flow is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the abundance lies. That's where it is. It's in that feminine energy of just trusting and believing in magic. I'm going to tell you a really quick story. So 3 weeks ago, I get invited to a wedding as a coach. Very cool. I was very excited. And it was on Block Island. I've never been to Block Island. And so I go. And I've now learned, I don't suffer from anxiety anymore, but in these situations I've had some, but I've now realized that they're not anxiety, it's intuition. When I
Hmm.
know, and it happened, I am a channel, which is something else that I've learned recently. So anyway, so I'm having that go on. So I arrive Saturday morning, nobody's around. I have no car on Block Island. And I have this feeling, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk before anybody needs me, before like whatever. They'll find me, they'll figure it out. So I leave the house, I go for a walk, and I come across this beautiful hiking trail. And so it's about 10 minutes into the trail, I all of a sudden look around. And so in my practice, one of the things I do with my clients is a meditation I call the garden, where we go to a garden and you build out your beautiful garden, and you in this garden have a seat where you are connected to the highest and best version of yourself. And I do a good job of like helping people to really be able to get in full color in 3D what this garden looks like. And then all of a sudden I realized, Kelly, I was in my garden. It
No.
was, no, I was in my garden. It was like every single thing about it. And it's really weird because when I vision my garden, it's the only time I'm not envisioning me on the beach. And
Mm-hmm.
it is near the beach. So my garden is rolling hills of wildflowers with a sea breeze and like the distant noise of the ocean, which is very particular. Now, I've been chasing wildflowers, rolling hills my whole life. Not my whole life, but my brother's lived in Colorado 20 years. I just came from there end of August, and I got to see some of the most spectacular that I've yet
Mm.
to see. And I had no idea Block Island looked like that. I thought it looked like Montauk. It's very different. And I was there. And so I had this complete out of body experience. I felt the deepest connection I've ever felt to the love and the support and the connection and all of it. Awen is what Druids call it. I've been studying a lot of my ancestry. And I came back and I got a call from my daughter, and, you know, my intuition was correct. And I was just so okay, non-reactive. It didn't impact, the rest of the wedding and the rest of the weekend. It was one of the most beautiful weekends of my life. And that's when I came back and actually finally filed for a divorce. But anyway,
Hmm.
um, and I've had so many other experiences like that one since I've come into this wholeness and done the shadow work and, looked at all the ugly, sides of myself that I was so afraid to face and so afraid that anybody would know. And they're part of who I am, and there's no shame. And I just got to keep, you just got to keep moving forward and keep expanding and growing and making sure that when these experiences happen, you don't chalk them off as a coincidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
You accept it fully for the miracle and the gift and the beauty and the joy and the love that it is. So that's
Oh my
soulful
gosh.
prosperity.
Uh, uh, sold, done, right there. I I love that so much, and I like that you added that at the end. That so many times we look at these experiences and we try to laugh it off, play it off, be like, but it's not real. It's not real. But I'm completely with you. It is absolutely real. It's that ability to connect to our inner highest self,
Mhm.
and there's no timeline, which is like the coolest part about it. So you're getting wisdom from a future version of yourself.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
Oh,
Yes.
Kelly, this week alone, I had the hugest epiphany. So my whole life, I've had two reoccurring dreams, but they're not always just dreams. They've happened to me like while I'm awake in a dream-like stance since I
Mm.
was little. So
Mm-hmm.
one is I used to always experience that I was pretty much alone in the world. And so when I would walk outside the door and a neighbor was there, the neighbor just appeared for me, right?
Mm.
When I would be driving, the gas station would just appear, the restaurant we would go to would just appear. It was like this very surreal, not lonely, not disconnected, almost powerful, almost like creator-like experience I had as a child. And then the thing was, I always had dreams of flying.
Mm.
And I would be flying above, and I would always be flying around the different scenarios in my life and feel peace and feel like, oh, I can escape and I realized that is just ascension, and that my ability to go to any timeline I want at any time I want to. Like,
Yes.
at any
Yes.
moment. And I'm like, I've had that and known that and have been doing that, but I was never able to consciously apply it.
Yeah.
And so what that was this week. I'm 53 years old. I put it together and I'm like, okay. So, that's what I had to do last night. I just ascended.
Yeah.
I just ascended and I had to do it again this morning and I'm feeling great now. And um, so it doesn't mean that, we're still human. We're human.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yes.
very human. But we do have this ability to tap into higher levels of consciousness. And quite frankly, as business owners and entrepreneurs, when we can do this and then we can lead from this space of gratitude,
Yep.
love, then there's no limit to the people around us and what we're doing. And it becomes fun and creative and lighthearted and just magical.
Yeah. I 100% am with you. I was literally getting chills listening to you talk about that. Um, yeah, I can remember the first time that I had like a moment where my higher self came in. I think I was 27 or 28, was married. My ex-husband had a lot of challenges with anxiety, alcohol, and he would just like disappear and not respond to anything. And I had the first panic attack of my life. I was sitting on my couch, my heart would not stop pounding, and this voice just came in and said, I need you to envision your life if this was not it. I need you to imagine something completely different. And I truly believe it was my higher self coming in to say, envision it. You can make something better. You are not stuck. This is not who you are. And it was the start of truly healing codependency, which I had had for a lifetime. Acknowledging first, you know, I was reading a book by Brene Brown. It's one of her earlier books, not one of the more recent ones. And it's called I Thought It Was Just Me. And I was literally reading the pages and finding myself, people
I
who are
love
codependent tend
Renee.
to attract addiction, tend to overgive and over identify with their giving nature as who they are, their identity, not
Yeah,
something that they
that was
do.
me. Yeah.
So many of us have done this. And so every time I've really hit a point of suffering or where I feel like I'm struggling, I go back to imagery, visualizing, and go back to envisioning what do I want? What do I need? And putting myself in a place where I can clear everything away and get down to being myself again and feeling safe inside myself again. And that is always what has been truly healing. So I love hearing your journey. And it's blowing my mind that you actually found the place that you've been visualizing.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yes.
Wow. It was
Yes.
magic. I don't know that I'll ever be back there. I'm not gonna like now like, oh, this is where I need to be because I know how, so that 7-year list, I bought my DR condo. I have this beautiful, simple condo right on the beach in the Dominican
Mm-hmm.
Republic.
Mm.
But what happened with that is I started to only feel at peace when I was there. And
Mm.
this was the year that I was like, hold on, I live on a lake. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a block away, but right now, if I turn to my left, I'm looking at a gorgeous lake with beautiful autumn changing. Like it's beautiful. And yet the 5 years prior, since I got rid of my motorboat because it got so crowded since the pandemic, I just didn't need it. I can take one of the rental boats
Yes.
whenever. So anyway, I just don't live a lake life. And I'm like, what the hell? So this year I put my kayaks so that I can just jump in them. So there could be a spider in there. Who cares, right? They're outside now,
Yeah.
but I can just jump in and I have two, so I can also just jump in and realize like no you that wherever you are you can create this and that's the whole
Yes.
point. That's the
Yes.
whole point of the
Yes.
imagery. I don't need to physically be there. And so yeah, it's magical. And I said before, I'm a channel, but when I channel, I'm channeling the highest and best version of myself. I do believe that I have some spirit guides. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, um, I was sitting on Memorial Day. My husband had been out of the house since January, and I hear a voice as loud as can be that says, "Go check on Chris." So I go inside and I tell both my daughters are living with me right now and my granddaughter. And I'm like, I gotta go check on Chris and one of you needs to come with me. And we go, and he's unconscious, not breathing, pretty much dead. We saved his life. And so I don't believe that's the higher version of me. Maybe, who knows? Maybe my deep intuition. It could be because that intuition is easy strong now. And that's happened to me several times in my life. And it saved me several times while I was on the.
Mm.
So, but I truly believe, and I'm just trying to like de-woo-woo this for people, although most of your listeners are probably fine with it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, an archangel or, an ancient goddess or a deity or spirits. It literally most of the time when I'm channeling is me, my intuition,
Hmm.
my highest version of myself, and what I'm missing or what I'm not in tune to. And I have to do it. This is why I like to say, this is my point. I like to say I am a channel because now I feel a responsibility, a good responsibility to master it.
Hmm.
And that mastery that I have been on now for like 5 months
Hmm.
has been the most life-changing. But all it is tuning deeper into myself every
Mm.
day, every day, every day. And it's been such an incredible journey.
I love that so much. That feels to me like a personal message to keep going, keep doing that work. I tend to channel poetry or
Mm.
just paragraphs of inspirational.
Yes.
It's always about moving from dark to light for the most part. That's thematic. And, like we said at the top when you were talking about your bio, did I write that? Was that me? Sometimes I read what came through and I'm like, I couldn't have contrived that if I tried.
Right.
I've never been one to sit down and now I'm going to write a poem. They always just hit me in the
Well,
head and I'm like, got to get that down.
and Kelly, in business, like I did not graduate high school. When I say that, I don't mean like the last day. I'm talking like I didn't go past eighth grade. Like I
Mm,
didn't go. Yet
mm,
I'm walking into businesses and help them grow. Like in 6 months, I've had people grow 25%, 50%, break records, do all kinds of things. I I have no reason why I should be able to do that,
mm-hmm.
except for this channeling, which is probably from past lives and future lives and
Sure.
being able to tap. So I know I have been doing that for a long time, but now being able to master it is really the goal. So it feels so I can do when I'm doing this, I have the clarity, the confidence, and the
Mm-hmm.
certainty, not that feeling like, am I making this up?
Yeah. You're
So
like, no, can't. I mean, some of it, there's just no way you could. Where would you
no,
pull
there's
the
absolutely no
information
way.
from?
And it's funny because in business, I never doubted it because
Mm-hmm.
it's not woo-woo, right? It's not this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful meadow that it's business. So it's like, oh, you're just good at it. But if you break it down, why am I
Mm.
good at it? How am I good at it? Where? Like it doesn't really make any sense, but it doesn't matter because it just comes through and it's like I'm able to see. I mean, and that came through that pandemic because these businesses are reaching out and I don't know anything about their
Mm-hmm.
type of business and I was able to get them through and not only that but to thrive and have new ways of operating and new ways of being and being able to shift because the whole world has changed, and everybody is motivated by different things now, and if you can't
Yeah.
figure out how to motivate people, you're stuck in the mud.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I actually have uh an episode coming up very soon. And my guest, her name is Sarah. We're going to be talking about work culture. So the whole idea of, more of an authoritative approach. And I don't know about you, but coming out of the pandemic, the last thing I want is somebody to tell me what to do.
No, exactly. Everybody
I,
has an entrepreneurial spirit now too. Like
yes.
it really, not only just entrepreneurial, but specific to being entrepreneurial, doing what you love.
Yes. Yes.
So that's even like it's huge. So all you have to do now is because look, not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur, and I'll just tell you, like most people are not. It's not all it's cracked up to be. It's not quite as sexy as everybody thinks. And but yet everybody's meant to have this entrepreneurial spirit. And if
Mm-hmm.
we as business leaders, whether you're a healer, a coach, or a scientist, or whatever you are, if you're able to help them tap into that and help give them purpose and give them meaning and help them to live a life that's fulfilling, they're going to be really excited to show up and help you succeed.
Yes.
But if this day of like being the boss and everybody worshiping you and maybe someday, no, it's no, nobody has any interest in that. They want leadership, they want to be led, they want to be empowered, creative they want a creative outlet, they want to have fun.
So, yeah, exactly. Exactly. I feel the same way. I think so many of us experience the pandemic as a gift, and not to downplay any of the terrible things that occurred during that time and how hard it was for so many people. But people realized that what existed was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it so interesting that so many companies are, really pulling people back into the office now and insisting on people being in an office.
Dropping their DEI, or do I say it right? DEI, yeah. I just read that
Yeah.
they're dropping their DEI incentives and like all these beautiful things that came out of that era.
Yeah. And say, it's almost like in some ways that old paradigm and way of being is like, nope, gotta hold on so tight, keep it, don't let it go, because for so many people it's probably a little scary to
Yeah.
think of that as they've done this their whole life and now you're telling me that this is not going to be anymore.
It happened to me overnight. It happened to me
As you
overnight.
said.
And I
Yeah.
was like, I had been doing the work. I had been
Yeah.
tapped. Thank God. I mean, I started without any capital, almost negative, and I was in a place where I could live with a question mark around money and be okay and not be freaked out and not start living out of fear and scarcity. I didn't, I mean, I reined in, don't get me wrong, but I still did the things that make me feel good, that make me happy, and travel and do things even when there's a big question mark around money. And that comes from that faith. But you just reminded me, the other part was the same thing happened with 9/11. I mean, what a beautiful world we experienced right after 9/11. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody,
Yes.
I mean, I'm a New Yorker, so
I'm in New Jersey, like right
yeah,
over. So
okay. So
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
everybody was at their highest and best selves. I mean, people, just wanted to go down there and help people and do all kinds of things. And how long did it last? And then the solution became, well, go shop. That's what our government came up with, like go shop, go spend money, which I get it from one standpoint. But it went away so fast. And so how many things, right? So my business partner doing what happened was like my 9/11 or my
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. And it's like I'm just grateful that I was there to be like, oh, okay, so this is the next scene in my movie. So how am I going to write this scene? And what am I going to do? This is great. This is fun. I could have a new soundtrack, a new wardrobe. Like I'm so different. So it was such a blessing.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're really playing in like the potentiality of the situation. Like, what if this goes wildly well? Like, what does that look like for me? What if everything happens better than I can ever dream? You
Yes.
know?
Yes. And that doesn't mean that there's not heartache, heartbreak, hurt, all kinds of things. I mean, I cried out loud last night and I haven't done that. And I was like, good, good, good. This is great because I'm not allowing this sadness or this hurt or betrayal or whatever it is I'm feeling to make the decisions in my life. But that doesn't mean it's not there, right?
Yes.
And it's not even, it does get a say in the decisions because the lessons are there in the
Yeah.
pain. That's where the lessons are. So if we're denying the pain, then we're not really taking the lessons with us. So, just like I said, when I'm ready to negotiate, I take street Jen.
I love that.
She leads, and she can say fuck and she can do whatever she wants. And I love that. And then I've also learned, through shadow work. So I had like all these dark shadows. I had that shadow Y that I talked about, but the light shadows. So like my light shadow was Grace. I mean, I
Mm.
would read Brene Brown and oh my God, I just, oh, if I could be anything like her and just, anybody that I felt had this grace, I would put them up on this pedestal and, I could never be like that. And then once I started really coming into my wholeness, I realized you not only have to accept your dark sides, you have to accept the love, the light, the beauty, all the gifts and all the things. And guess what? I've been called graceful like a bunch of times in the last 6 months. And I'm like, wow, 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 wow. So all the things that we're afraid of are really where the gifts are, right? There's so many beautiful, I'm a huge Carl Jung fan, and he talks so much about the gifts and the beauty and the lessons and the growth are all in the dark.
Hmm.
So you're
Yeah.
dark to light, you're dark to light, you're dark to light. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. Oh, I feel that so much. And I'm thinking back to, the parts of your story that maybe could hold shame, could hold blame, that instead there's so much peace in being able to say, it's all me and it's all okay. And I get to have that. And I get to be a spirit having a human experience, and human experience gets to be all over the place: joy,
Yes.
pain, sorrow, excitement, ecstatic living, like whatever it is, you get to
And
have all of it.
yes, and even those people that you judge, and I'm going to say this, and please, nobody take politics. I'm just using it for a perspective and as an example. Like my youngest daughter, we joke and call her the angry lesbian because she is. She's an angry lesbian. So we say it with love and lighthearted, and like she's very anti-Trump and very anti like anything that's anti-Semite, anti-gay, anti-black, whatever. And so it's like where we live, there's trucks with Trump flags and Confederate flags and this. And now I try to teach her, like, they must be having the coolest human experience. So we're judging it and it's causing us anger and hate and all this. It's hurting us. Meanwhile, when they went to the studio and they were giving out roles, what I mean, come on, this is a fun role that they are playing. And so when I can look at it that way, and even a client called me this week, so distraught about the P. Diddy situation, and so distraught that somebody that he works with is literally going around like, this is fake news, this is fake news. And I'm like, listen, this is a collective conscious issue that we have now because we as a society have created this situation
Hmm.
and we've all turned a blind eye. And
Hmm.
when I say all, I know there are people who didn't, but we're talking about the collective consciousness. And so more did than didn't.
Mm.
And there's now the whole world has to look at their shadow.
Yeah.
Now the whole world has to do the shadow work because we've all done it and we all have. We can
Yep.
all say, no, I've never turned a blind eye, but I can guarantee you, if you get very granular and go back to all your details, maybe there was a situation where the uncles are talking about a 13-year-old's breasts. We know what happens. Oh, look at her,
Hmm.
whatever it is. Like,
Yes.
and like, I was explaining in my 20s when I had this like horrific journey, there was this small period where I got this great job doing corporate catering sales in Times Square in Rockefeller Center. And I was on top of the world and so excited and I was killing it. And I was like, I got all these studio uh clients like NBC and it was so much fun. And then the president of the company comes in to congratulate me and says, "Oh, I'm taking you to dinner." And then on the way to dinner, oh, we have to stop and put my briefcase up in my hotel room. Come with me.
Mm.
Okay, so my like hope that I had for the first time in my life really just humbled me back into ending up where I ended up with. because why did my manager, who was a woman, think it was okay for a 23-year-old girl to be going to dinner with this man in a cab? Whatever. Because as a collective society, it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
okay. So I'm giving
Yeah.
that just as an example, and I could go on and on. I was on the
Yeah.
streets. I've seen that lifestyle and all of that. So the point is, sorry, I'm on fire today.
I love
The
it.
point is, we have to get to a point where we can look at someone like P. Diddy and wonder how under what circumstances could that be me? Now,
Yeah.
this is really easy for me to say. I
Yeah.
was a homeless prostitute crackhead. People don't look at me and think that. People love me and forgive me instantly. People like, oh, your story, your story. But, maybe if I said that to them more often, they would be able to see that, like, we can change who we are at any given moment.
Yeah.
And so under what circumstances could we become a monster?
Mm.
Could we become somebody who's doing the things that P. Diddy was doing? And by the way, so many people were around and watching and observing and
Yes.
not doing and saying anything. But
Yes.
the point is, under what circumstances, and really, really be able to envision that and nurture that, like that culture and that society and that the what he inherited and the circumstances he grew up under and blah blah blah. And so yeah, less judgment and more understanding. And by the way, we are all capable of every single behavior under the right circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe that you're capable of the worst, then you are denying yourself the potentiality
Mm.
of the best. Because with every negative, there is a positive, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so in these circumstances, when we're all judging, all you're doing is reflecting back where in yourself you haven't accepted, loved, nurtured, processed, whatever, right? We're just all walking around triggered,
Yeah.
triggered, triggered,
Totally.
triggered, triggered, triggered. And understandably, but in just getting to be like, oh, I feel this so deeply. Now let
Yeah.
me in and figure out
Yes.
why. And that's where we can heal instead of like, judging and getting angry. And I've spent most of my life very judgy and very angry. So it's not judgment about that. It's just we all need to heal.
Yeah. Do you think part of that is also accepting responsibility for your choices
Oh,
and
totally.
who you are? And I mean, none of us is perfect. None of us has done the best job every day all the time. I mean, even you could look at people who are considered the best of the best. They've made mistakes. You
You
know,
just
they've had bad days, bad moments in a day. And so it's that piece of responsibility and then always sitting in awareness of there is a choice in every moment of your life
well,
to
yeah.
exist in darkness or light. And I see it this way. I see if you are somebody who is in service of others, which many of the people in our circles are, right, Jen? So if you're in service of others, if you cannot take the time to be in service of yourself first, because it's the care of ourselves that makes us available to be aware, to make the right choice moment after moment. And so, if the only work you do in your life is on yourself, you've done a beautiful job. And I think it took me a long time to get to that point to realize that taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's probably the most selfless act you can do because your availability for others and service is so much more amplified.
You just nailed the two other biggest lessons of the year or the last, I say year, but it's really 5 years, right? And number one, taking radical
Mm,
responsibility for your situations and your outcomes and your emotions, even your emotions.
mm-hmm.
I couldn't blame my ex-husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, for how I was feeling last night, right? That doesn't matter what he does because I know how to, especially now, once you know how to ascend, right? But the other one, wait, what was the other point you made? It was really, really important.
It
Um,
was about self-care, being
oh, self-care.
selfless.
So then I was working with this coach. And so those two patterns that I told you about, like doing anything and everything for my business partner and my husband, this really, I didn't even know how much of a people pleaser I was. And my coach, David Meltzer, says to me, Jen, you are such a giver. This rule applies to everybody, but especially to you and people like you, moms, blah, blah, blah. You have to learn how to receive more
Hmm.
than what you give, not just receive. And so the lessons of this have been unfolding beautifully in the simplest way, down to like, number one, being able to receive a compliment. Number two, like, I'm blessed with my social media for the last like 10 years. I get a minimum of like 500 happy birthdays, and I always responded to each and every one individually. And this year, I just looked at them all and laid down and let it all soak in. And that's, on top of the text, and that, it was like, that's a simple way to be able to receive. Um, there was another example the other day of, oh, somebody, I did something kind for somebody and they thanked me. And I like, oh, no need to thank that that's you're blocking receiving. Like these little
Mm.
simple things that we do, and they're all unfolding now because I was so like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not really not open to receive. And then I started to see these patterns where it's like you're thinking you're shrinking. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
really deserve gratitude. I don't really deserve that, or like, and you're shrinking who you are and you're contracting instead of expanding. And so receiving is not like, I'm going to get me mine, but yet it is. My new mantra when I'm contemplating something is, what do I want to get out of this scenario? How am I whole? Because, yeah, if I'm not whole, I'm pouring from depletion.
Yes.
And so, how am I actually helping anyone? So, you're so right. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lifelong lesson, like you shared. It was not an easy journey, and I think you've highlighted that a couple times, and I think that's so important because someone might look at you and say, Jen's got everything, she's got it all together, she's got it all figured out. And the piece that's so important is that it isn't now just easy every day. That's not what we're aiming towards. That's toxic positivity. That's like just like putting like a pretty sheen over everything and saying, got it, it's perfect every day, all the time, it looks beautiful. It doesn't. It looks like it breaks and you fix it again and again. It looks like you get it wrong and you forgive yourself and you ask for forgiveness, and you're always looking to say, okay, where did I get it wrong? What's going well? And moving forward with the best intentions, but knowing that you're only human,
Yes.
you know?
There's a lesson that I read about so many years ago. And it's funny because I'm going back to basics with Buddhism, and so much of like, I've now gone into like a little bit of the witch world and, all these different worlds. And
Yes.
and now I'm going back to basics on Buddhism and the things, I've been studying Joe Dispenza, like all these different things. And it's all in there. And I bet you
Mm-hmm.
it's all in the Bible. And I bet you it's all in
Mm-hmm.
almost everything, right? So now I'm
Mm-hmm.
going back and reading it. But one of the greatest lessons in Buddhism is equanimity. And
Mm.
so it's like where you just said something, so it's not beautiful, but it's actually where you can start to look at the mess and see the beauty. Look at P. Diddy and see the love. See the love, be able to see where there is some love, where there is some, whatever. So that's really what it is. And to know like this horrible situation is happening to me right now. And I'm watching somebody that I love like really hurt themselves
Mm-hmm.
so you could get down into the density of that situation, or you can view it with equanimity
Mm.
and still see the love and still see the beauty and still see those things, not and but also not having it affect you
Mm-hmm.
to a degree where you're going in a different direction, right? Staying
Mm.
centered, staying grounded,
Yes.
more like the observer.
Yes. Yes. Oh, being the observer. I think that's such a huge piece of it too. That just being in recognition at all times. This is a human meat suit. There's a spirit
Yeah.
in here. There are
That's the best
things
hack to meditation, too, by the way.
totally.
To think of yourself as the observer instead of trying to like, 'cause you're never going to shut your brain off. It's just like you would be dead. Okay. Because everybody thinks like, I sit and I have all these thoughts. Of course you do. So just become
Yeah.
watching all
Yes.
of that happening. And,
Yeah.
and, and that like that was where I had my breakthrough because I was like, so
Yeah.
I could
I
talk to you
it's
forever.
oh, so much so. I think I just wanted to say about meditation that makes it so juicy for me now versus when I started and I was trying to get to the point I was like envision the stream, the thoughts are moving in the stream. Now I realize it's not even about the mind piece, it's the body stillness. And so when I teach people to kind of be connected with themselves, I do a lot of helping people get into a settled state for sleep, that it's more about getting into stillness because your mind has all the things that want to be acknowledged and your body is feeling tired. When you get into stillness and you can be forgiving of your mind for doing what a mind does, which is think and create and solve problems, then you can allow other things to come in. After meditating is always when I start to channel. And it's because I got into stillness and there's intention and I just observe. And for a long time, I would just envision my mind as a littler version of me who either just wants to sit next to me or wants to crawl up in my lap and be there while I'm being in stillness. And I loved her and let her be. And so that became my visualization and meditation for anybody who struggles. And there, it's not meant to be something that you struggle through. It's just meant to be something that you allow and improve as you
Surrender.
grow.
Surrender.
Yes, surrender. That word, I wrote it down because, and I
It's so
circled it.
huge. It keeps coming back for me. Yes.
I know. Yes, same.
And that practice of being able to surrender. And then another thing you said was so powerful. Listen, stillness is the first step to expansion. The first step to growth, the first step to all of that. Like you have to have the stillness first. You have to create the space.
And it's a rebellious act these days to choose to be still.
Yeah, it is. I try to do that. Yeah, with my granddaughter. She's she's intense. She's 4, and but with me, we have this connection, and we can just, and like I have her now. She walks outside, and she goes, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," to the sun. But just even that 3 seconds of thank you, thank you, thank you. It makes a difference. Just grounded. So she's outside walking barefoot. Her mom's, put your shoes on. I'm grounding, mom. Meanwhile, she's not. She just wants to play.
She
She
just
is.
wants
She is. But in her mind, she just wants her shoes off.
she just
She's a
wants her
little,
shoes off.
she wild like her grandmother.
Mm.
Wild.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and that's powerful. I can see it.
Yes.
It's so beautiful to be able to see her potentiality and heal, and now my mom has the beginning stages of Alzheimer's and dementia, and there was a lot of unhealed stuff between us because like I was just left to go. And I
Mm-hmm.
never blamed my mom until I started doing my shadow work, and then this anger came up. And now it's too late. Like I can't actually heal that relationship, which is actually a beautiful thing in a sense because it forces me to do all the work.
Yeah.
Whereas when we're trying to heal relationships, we kind of expect people to meet us halfway and this and that, right? Which is good, but it's still so conditional.
Yeah.
And so now I realize that this new relationship that I'm having and growing with her is not conditional. It is actually a practice in perfect love because there's no control. I have that I can't get her to say, "You're right. I should have this. I'm sorry." Like none of that is ever going to happen.
Mm,
And it's been beautiful because that is the ultimate because I'm never going to get that validation or whatever. And that's where you're 100% responsible for your emotions and your outcomes. Period.
yeah.
Period.
And you are existing and creating so much generational healing just in all of that you
That's
talked
why I love
about.
the witches. The witches brought that to me. I never knew anything about any of that. And I'm like, and I can see it and feel it. And like, I totally get it. Like, I am healing not only, because you're motivated by this grandchild and that, but my mom, my
Mhm.
grandma, her grandma, everybody. Like,
Yeah.
when we're healing the past too.
Yes. Yes, we are. Which
Yeah.
really blows your mind. I mean, you could go into all different directions and spin your brain out of control thinking it's the generations of your human, but then there's also your soul. So it's so many pieces, but it's all in service of humanity. It's
Yeah.
all about making things better and bringing about a better world for everybody. I love that. I've very recently been thinking a lot in the things that I'm doing and how I'm healing the lives that my grandmothers led and
Yes.
healing for them. They both lived, roughly born in the 20s. And so the time frame that they lived through, that they had families through, was very dark for women, and they both had very different experiences. And my parents had very different childhoods and upbringings. But they both healed so much in being very committed parents, and that became their mission to be great parents. And it wasn't always easy for them, and I can see that now, how hard
Mm.
it must have been to have very little example of how to raise children, let alone someone like me who was extra sensitive and very easily triggered. So now you can go back, and that's the cool thing about healing, is that you can go back and you can heal those timelines now,
Yep.
and it becomes a different thing. You can see it through a different lens, but then
Yes.
it informs me and how I can be a better parent to my son.
Yeah.
And I feel such a huge responsibility to create a better human through
Mm.
my son and to be the best mom that I can be. Not perfectly. I make lots of mistakes, of course, but with intention, really
Yeah.
strong intention that my generations down the line will have it better because I did the work and I healed and
Yes.
healed past, present, future.
I mean, even now, I mean, I was not, I have two amazing daughters. They have always been loved. They are compassionate and just so open and just, but they suffered a lot. I was a hot, hot, hot mess for a long, long time. And, but now I am healing that time period because I
Mm,
am so present and I am so in love and I am walking the talk and and I'm able to do that. And it's like, so you don't have to wait. You don't have to like,
no.
it's too late. I screwed up my kids. I did this. Like I'm literally able to, and I know that. And that's where like that's how you can like because the mom guilt, man, that's a real thing.
Really is.
And we can, like I said earlier, at any point, you can be whoever you want to be, and you don't bring the past along with it, except for the lessons.
Hmm.
Just you bring in the past, but not the shame, the guilt.
Right.
And
Right.
and the shame and the guilt and the remorse and all that. That's okay too, as long as it is only giving you clarity.
Hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go into that world, now you're going to just keep making the same mistakes over and over because you're allowing the shame and the guilt to drive. So,
I love that so much. And I'm thinking too, clearly if people are listening and they resonate with the spiritual journey and all of those pieces, but I'm thinking you've given so much tremendous advice for people to just live a fulfilled life and be more connected with people. And I don't think there's any of us who don't want that for ourselves and for our families and our friends, to feel more fulfilled, to feel more connected, to have more joy in our lives. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons, is that prosperity doesn't have a dollar sign attached.
Nope.
It's it's a lifestyle, it's a vibe, it's how you live. And to me, the biggest word that comes up is freedom, and the freedom that you can have. And I think that's the joy on the other side of entrepreneurship that can be so challenging, is the freedom that exists in your time, your energy, the people that you're with, and how you trade, your time and energy for the things that you want in life.
Yeah, that's the biggest illusion too. Like we got to just work so hard to get that. And it's like, no,
No, we don't.
no, we don't. We don't. And don't get me wrong, I love work. So it's like
Same.
sometimes I free up time and energy to start another project, but it's bringing me joy.
Yep.
It's bringing me this. It's not chase. There's a difference in this. I have to work people through this sometimes. And they're like, well, I really want to free up my time and energy because I want to start this other business. And I'm like, that's great. But let's make sure energy, all like my three buckets are energy, work, and love. They
Mm.
they all have to be, and I got that from a coach, Brian Johnson. I don't want to take his credit. I'm certified through one of his companies, but energy, work, and love. That's the triangles. So if you have all of those, I don't like the word balance. I think balance is bullshit. But if you're nurturing all of those boxes, energy, work, and love, then you can have as many businesses as you want. You can be, like, and I did this research because I have a very masculine driven client who's like just wants to like he's not happy unless his calendar is like just wow. And so I did some research of some of the people he idolizes, like Tony Robbins and Alex Hermosi and blah blah. Tony Robbins wakes up between 9 and 10 a.m. I have a whole new
Mm.
like I kind of was judging him as a very masculine, but meanwhile, we have the same Kundalini yoga teacher, by the way, Tony Robbins. He practices Kundalini yoga. So it's like people are never what we think anyway. But yeah, and he's been doing that for a really, 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 really long time. I was shocked. I thought it was gonna be like 4 or 5 a.m. he wakes up. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. It has been pure joy for me to hear
Me
your story, to hear all of the things that you've been through, the success you've experienced, and all of the healing. And I think it just gives us all a little bit more permission to look at ourselves, heal ourselves, and be open to things happening for our best and highest selves.
too.
And that we get to have it all, and it gets to all be what it is. And the choice of existing in joy is our own.
Yeah. The only
Yeah.
thing I would change there, Kelly, is we already have it all.
Uh,
We're just blocking it, right? So we just gotta unblock. It's not like we have to work to achieve it. We just
yes.
let go. We gotta surrender. We gotta just do that. Like, and it's people. What's that? That Anise Nin. I always say the name wrong, but yeah, there's a saying. The pain it takes. One day you realize the pain that it takes to stay tightly closed as a bud is much more than it is to bloom. And I'm saying
Mm,
it totally paraphrasing. But that right there, it's like we think it's so much more work. We allow that fear and laziness, which we're all driven by the way, don't
mm,
deny. And literally everything you're resisting, just look at it and say, oh, what am I experiencing? Fear or laziness. And some of that laziness isn't what we think. It literally is like, oh, if I do this, then like I got to do all that. And oh, it's like, so we want to stay tightly closed as a bud. We don't bloom.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it should just be effortless.
Yeah. Awesome. I have loved this so much. I'm really appreciative of your time, Jenn, and your
Well, you
wisdom.
created a beautiful safe container. I did a ton of healing here today and needed it.
Oh,
So thank you. And in telling our journeys and being able to just say it all out and be vulnerable, there's so much healing in that. So thank you for providing that.
oh, you're so welcome. That I receive that. I'll
You
take
know,
that. That means a lot to
receive
me.
that. That's a gift. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you all have enjoyed listening to Jenn's story, and we can all relate to so many pieces of it. I encourage you to get into the show notes and find ways to connect with Jenn and find her. And I hope you all have a miraculous day. And thank you for being with us. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.